Welcome to the Healers Café, the #1 show for medical practitioners and holistic healers to have heart-to-heart conversations about their day-to-day lives while sharing their expertise for improving your health and wellness. So welcome to the Healers Café, and today I'm with Carli Axford. She's a former chiropractor who studied at one of the largest back institute in the world, which is the Texas Back Institute, where she witnessed the team prevent 85% of back surgeries. And she studied over 20 modalities. I'm not going to go through them all, but kinesiology, NLP, obviously chiropractics. And you've been seeing in Melbourne about 300 clients a week. And then at some point, you decided to create this technique, spinal flow technique. And I don't know if that's after a trip to India or where that all came from. What is your story, and how did you come across this, or how did you get into the field of chiropractic first, and then how did all this evolve?
Yeah, no, well, thank you. Thank you for having me on here. It feels great to be here. My story was one of, just being young, to be honest. Didn't really know a huge amount about chiropractic, and I studied that straight from school. So I was only 17, and I went through chiropractic college with a full science. I wanted to understand science and brains and nerves, and I wanted to understand like why joints move and why they don't. And from there went off to Texas Back Institute, which was really a place where the researchers were there, and it was all about research and alignment and anybody that was in the world of emotions and energy. I was like, oh, what's that rubbish that they're doing? So my journey was full trying to be this kind of scientist chiropractor until I started practice. And my practice was initially that I helped people, like many modalities do. I'd help people with some back pain and some headaches and some, different types of injuries. And I helped them a little bit. And I also helped them a lot. But for me, I was like, is that it? Is this what I've studied 5 years for? Like, it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to understand more the why, what's underneath people's pain and what's underneath people's blockages. I needed to investigate more, but I also needed to look at, I want to make a better difference in the world. It wasn't for me about a little bit less pain. It was, these people are suffering. Their lives are not okay. I wanted to look at how can we actually change their lives? That yes, for sure that there was less pain, but what about more happiness and more energy and more sleep and more just feeling good in their body and their mind and their heart? So that was where my journey went. And my journey went into all sorts of places, into ashrams and looking at emotions and energy. And I started to play with different modalities and bring them in. Keeping the foundation of chiropractic, because chiropractic's got a beautiful foundation, which is the body has what it needs to heal. So I loved that. But the part that I wanted to look at was, but hang on, if the body's not functioning well, it doesn't mean it's broken, and it doesn't mean it's my job to fix it. Actually, there's a wisdom in that. So when I journeyed to really look at and explore the wisdom of the body and what does it mean, and the cleverness of when the body puts stress or tension or shows symptoms. And that was really the birth of the spinal flow technique. I'm not going to say, it's mine and I created. I don't believe there's anything new, but it was a mixing of everything that I've learned. Plus, I'm pretty intuitive. So for me, with my clients, I just played and the results were amazing, and changes happen and crazy amounts of healing happen. So at some stage, I was probably asked to like, what are you doing? Like, what is it that you're doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just doing whatever feels right. And I guess it wasn't for me that I was like, yes, I want to create a modality ever. But I did want to stop seeing people one-on-one and stop doing the retreats. So they're like, well, you don't get to stop unless you pass this on. So then I went to track, what is it that I'm doing? Why do I put my hands here? And why with my hands here does maybe an emotion come out, or why does this affect that? So I spent years tracking the contacts, the reactions to create what is now called the spinal flow technique, which I believe it's a combination of every teacher that I've had. And, it brings in, the main thing it does is it brings in that the body's smart, that there's a wisdom inside. And when you allow the body to do what it knows, healing happens. So it's a little bit of a summary of my little story of,
so with chiropractic and same with osteopathy, one of the foundations that we learn is that structure governs function, but you're talking about more than function here. You're talking about emotional pain, how one feels, so it's mood, it's beyond just, like you said, the simple structure and the function of things. And did this come because patients, because often we attract what we need to learn from, at least that's what I've been in practice 30 years. And, when you need to learn the next thing, then comes the patience that you have to figure out, okay, well, this didn't work. What else is possible, right? Did you find that your patients were coming in with things like more anxiety or depression or something else, or that you felt like, I need to put this together in a bigger way?
Yeah, no, exactly what you're saying, because they were coming in saying, I have a headache. And with my knowledge, I'm like, yeah, there it is. It's coming from there. There's a blockage that interferes with the nerve. And that's what we learn with chiropractic, with osteopathy. There it is. And so then at the end of the session, they're like, oh, you're amazing. I feel better. But a week later, or a month, or 6 months, the same thing, the same blockage is coming. And my thing was like, well, did I really help, or did I put a Band-Aid on it for a little moment in time? And so then it was like, hang on, can we work out why? Why is the structure and function changing here? Like, what's happening? Because it doesn't just come. And that's what made me really look at, if I'm going to really help these people, I need to understand why. Like, why is your body put that there? What's happening? So then I really started to investigate into their lives, like what happened, like tracking their behavior, their choices, and realizing also that if it was an injury, a sports injury, that made sense to me. But my people weren't coming in with sports injuries. They were coming in with lifestyle, with stress, with thoughts. And that was what was storing in the body. And we can call it energy or, energy emotion, but reality, what it was causing that same harness in the spine that a fall would cause, except a fall, 5 or 6 weeks, the injury resolves by itself. But these were deep layers that were storing. And perhaps if they're energetic, it's still motion and not motion. So when there's no motion in the body, there's stuckness and hardness. So what was getting stored in the body was hardness. And it was clear for me that it was not an injury. It was not a fall. It was not a postural thing. It was actually coming from, a lot of their thoughts and their minds and the stress that was storing in the body, which was therefore changing the structure of their spine and their system, which then in turn changed their function.
So how did that change the way you would interview, your client coming in? So how would, so let's take the exact, of the pains here. Normally you can just Band-Aid it, fix it, but now it comes back. So how would you go ahead with that interview?
That's because, I teach that so much with my modality, because it's about how can you connect to your person and let them speak and tell you what's going on. So yes, they're coming with pain. It's like, tell me all about that, because that needs to come out. So we need to hear and to be there for our clients. But once they've shared that, it's like, why is that there? And they're like, whoa, no one's ever asked me why. Like, because often it could be a practitioner or someone else that's taken away the power for them to really inquire, but why? So I would ask them, I'd be like, well, tell me, why do you think that's there? And so, and I would also I would talk to their heart and not to their minds. Because when I spoke to their hearts, it's like, well, how does that feel? What happened was often the emotion that was underneath the cause would come to the surface. And then we were in a heart-based relationship as opposed to a mind. And taking them on a journey from that first visit of, okay, they've come in with pain. We've realized underneath that there was, they're stuck in their life, or they're not happy with their relationship, or that's going on. Then my next step would be, you know what, I want to help you with your pain, but actually I'd love to help you with your life as well, if that's okay. And what we would do is we would shift that conversation so it wasn't just, not that it was pain focused, that pain made sense because it was a signal saying, hey, I'm not okay. But actually it was like slowly with our interaction was like, can we talk about this? Because this is life. This is what's going to create the happiness. This is the part that they came in. So I would just shift from a symptom, which would always make sure that was important, that they felt heard and they could say it, to let's start to delve. And then slowly I would take them on a journey with me. Like, what do you think's going on? And where do you think that's coming up? And what's happened for you? And my job was always to empower. I say was because now I teach other practitioners, was always to take them on a journey of empowerment. Was that I wanted to make sure that every time I saw them, I was bringing them back the confidence to own their body, own their wisdom, and own their choices. So they would come to me and go, my plan always was at the end, they'd say, you know what, Carli, I know exactly what's going on in my body. This is what's happening. This is what's going on in my life. This is what I feel. Yes, I'm going to lie on your table, but actually I know my body and my life. And I'm like, yes. Then I knew that my job was done because I was empowering them to be their own healer, their own doctor, because I believe that they know more than me. Like they've got the wisdom, they're the ones doing their lives. So that was my little journey that I would take them on through my practice.
Yeah, it's funny. We've done very similar paths. I don't know if do you know about the Bowen technique?
Yes.
I'm sure you do, right?
So not as much as you know, but I know that so many people say that spinal flow is so similar to Bowen. And then I was looking at what you're doing, and this is like we've both created. It's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't create Bowen therapy. It was Tom Bowen from Geelong who came up with the so-called moves, but it was taught mostly very mechanically, a bit like chiropractic and osteopathy. And then again, with practice and time and, working close with other practitioners that are seeing, and sharing what we're seeing, it's like, in the end, it is all about the patient being empowered, taking charge of their journey, and, our role, listening to them and fundamentally believing that they know the solution. Right, which is kind of very interesting. So when you say it in your notes to find the cause of pain, at this point, is your conclusion that, or let me put it, you put it in your words. I don't want to give you any words on here, but where does pain come from in your mind at this point? Because you've been in practice quite a long time, right? So
again, I can only talk about my philosophy and my beliefs. Yeah. And I do believe that I believe everything, but I think we all come from the body in a different way, and the mind, and I think they're all good. But the way I come from it is from the brain. Like I really look at the brain as the master, the controller, as the organ that speaks to us, that keeps us alive, but also has the healing energy for healing, for healing to happen. So for me, when there's a signal, like the same signal as like if you put your hand on a hot plate and it's hot, it can come from the hand, it will send a signal up to the brain saying hot, I'll move your hand away. And I believe pain is a similar response. I do believe that it's a message from the brain to say, hey, there's a warning signal. And so for me, that's why I am quite focused on the brain and the spinal. The brain and the spinal cord, to me, that's one organ, brain, spinal cord, all nerves that come out to supply every muscle, tissue, organ of the body. So my focus is really brain focused on how can we create a free flowing energy from the brain through the spine, because that's where my belief of where healing intelligence, source, love flows through. And so then the cause of when there's a blockage in that, when there's a blockage in the communication between the brain and the spinal cord, and a blockage can look like, like a vertebra that's just, rather than having free movement, like a little bit of hardness in there. And that's a signal of, stress has been stored in the system, in the brain spine model. Does that make sense? Or have I just gone a bit too?
No, that's, that makes sense on a very functional level. But where do these 7 systems, spinal systems, are we talking about like energetic chakras? Are we talking about, what are these 7 energy systems? Or are the energy systems? Like, how are you putting, are they fascial lines? Are they, how do you see it working, our whole body?
Is it with the 7 gateways of the spine?
Yeah, your method, or that the one you're talking about. I'm trying to understand what is the understanding there.
Yeah, so I have 7 gateways of the spine, and they are in regions of the spine. So, we've got the awakened gateway, which is right on the cranium. We've got the pause gateway, which is upper cervical. So they do go through vertebral levels of the spine, very similar to the chakra system. The chakra is more energetic layers, I believe. I'm no expert. But what I've done is I've put it in regions of the spine based on my findings with people. Like, why when the emotion comes up is the center gateway, which is the heart area, why is there like a curvature in there, like some type of kyphosis or scoliosis? Right, that's the center gateway, that's the heart. There's a common blockage that can occur in there, which is, hiding of the heart. So I have labeled the spine into 7 gateways. But the methodology is actually not about, if that's how we do the assessment to see what's happening in the body, where is there stress stored, how can we assess it, how can we look at posture? That is quite a physical examination to do an assessment, because I do believe that a lot of the clients that see my practitioners want to know why, how was my structure and function. But the way we work is not with that. It's actually with what I call 33 access points. And they are areas where the meninges, the dura mater, so around the brain, we've got the meninges, and they come through the spinal cord into these specific areas where they're attached to the spinal column. And to me, they're areas of, you can say, love or portals, that when you make a contact there, that brings flow and openness to the body. So in the spinal flow technique, we don't look at, we're aware of what's stuck, we're aware of where there's blockages, but our focus is never on that. We focus on what works. Where is there ease, and how can we grow more ease, and how can our contact speak directly to the brain so the brain can come and do what the brain knows, which is to heal the body. And it does that by bringing more flow into the system, which can look like a wave-like motion through the body, by releasing blockages and start the healing process. So we're contacting areas of meninges, the meningeal kind of connections between that and the vertebra is where the contact's on the access point. But the biggest, I guess, philosophical difference in a lot of chiropractic techniques, and this is the areas that are stuck or the body is placed as tension, we're aware of them and we monitor change, but we don't focus on what's broken. We focus on what's working.
What would your life be like if you were pain-free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
And with that, my idea is to bring in, when I look at the body, I see ease and I see healing only. I'm aware that there's stress in the system, but my thing is like the body is perfect and whole. So when we make a contact on what already works, we're reminding the brain and the body that they have what it has. They have everything inside them to heal. And so we're bringing that focus on, you're already working. Let's grow more ease, more flow into a system that is not broken at all. So that's where the philosophy, and then we do a little check always just to make sure that any interference is getting cleared, but it gets cleared by the person's body because they've got the intelligence and wisdom to do that.
Right. I'm looking for parallels to understand it, but it seems like it's interesting. With Bowen therapy, we'll treat the good side first when it comes to joints.
Yeah.
And the idea, whether it's like, the hip or the shoulder, if it's, there's an issue there, we'll do the better side as if it teaches the other side how to function, right? Like a reciprocity of sides, right? Which it works that way. So it's interesting, but your approach is very also like psychologically, there's a lot of work, put the energy on what is good to grow more of the goodness rather than focus, because what you focus on is what you attract, right? So if we go into the pain, like a lot of the therapists that used to, like bang the pain out with pillows and you're growing the story and you're growing the pain. Whereas if what's working, it's a complete other angle. So you're doing this physically with the same principle of focusing on what is good. Is that a correct understanding?
But we know that, like everybody knows that in the mind. Everybody knows that. Most people know that if you start the day with a little bit of gratitude or you focus on what works, you're going to have a better day. We know that, we've been told that, we practice that with the mind. So we get up in the morning and we say, oh, I'm going to have a beautiful day. I'm abundant. I feel great. My family's gorgeous. And then we go, oh, and my shoulder hurts, my back hurts, I've got a headache and I can't walk. And so what we've done is we've done this beautiful practice for the mind and we've told the body that it's broken and it doesn't work. And it's like we haven't continued, because to me, the body and mind are the same organ. It's the same system. And so it's exactly the same philosophy that everybody's been talking about. It's like, what if we started the day and we said, hey, yes, my body, like check in and find the places of your body that works. Bring focus to that, because that's only going to spread, which is exactly what you're doing with Bowen. It's like, start with what works, remind the body that it knows that they're, and the other thing, like in my years and years and years of doing this forever, I mean, this is all I've ever done my whole life, is I have never seen a body that even the person that's got the most pain, the most disease, the most illness, it's only ever been about 10% of the body that felt blocked and stuck. But that 10% was causing chaos. I get it. But there was this other like 80, 90% that was doing really well and functioning really well and had good flow and good structure and function. But that 10% is where the focus goes. And so for me, it's like, but can we focus on the 90% that's doing really well? We're aware of the 10%, but this 90% is going to grow the other stuff, as opposed to all our focus being on I'm blocked, I'm stuck. And so that's how I see the body and teach my practitioners. It's like, find what works. I promise you there's places, there's areas that work. Let's grow more ease, more things that work in the body. So the body just, so that, yeah, the philosophy is that, which I love. And I try and teach that, to go like, what if we did start the day like that, like scanning the body and saying, you know what, so much of it works.
Mhm. And how are you finding that the patients are responding to that in general? Is that do they find that like that makes sense? Is there that level of consciousness where people are like, oh, well, I'll play along, I'll see how this works? Or is there a lot of resistance to that kind of belief system?
I think it depends how they're coming in. So most people that see my practitioners, they're coming in because they're suffering. They're suffering and they're not okay. So that level of conversation, I don't think it's time to meet them with that. So initially, when someone comes in to see one of my practitioners, it's like, hey, I get that you're suffering. I'm here for you. Let me help you. And that way, they're like, great, I can surrender. And in the process of the practitioners helping them, they start to feel better, trust their body, get more confidence. And then I believe the conversations come in of like, but what if? And what's happening at home? But I think initially, most people that are attracted to my practitioners, they're not okay. Like their life is not working. They're stressed, their body's hurting, there's disease, there's illness. So rather than coming into the mind with something they have to do differently, I just want them to lie down and surrender and say, you know what, we've got, lie down. Let's let the body do what it needs. Let's let it release tension, bring more ease. So it's kind of like just surrender. And then we want to empower, but once their whole body, their mind shifts.
Yeah, it makes sense. So do you have any interesting stories or one of your more shocking, I don't know, in practice there's always surprises, even though things are likely to work out. Personally, I'm always in awe that it actually does, that the body is that incredible that that it's capable of healing to the degree that it is. So do you have stories like that stand out that you could share? You have thousands of them.
I have thousands of stories. Like all I've ever done in my life is witnessed miracles. And now I don't believe they're miracles. I'm like, well, of course. One of my memories was from my practice. I'm not in practice anymore, but my practice was, a little kid that wasn't able to move her arms or legs. And she'd come in and I was like, we're just going to do this. And I remember her mum coming in and saying, hey, for the first time, she held a fork, which meant the movement that wasn't supposed to happen did. Working with, different types of paraplegia and having no feeling below, but then watching their pelvis and their legs start to move and twitch. I'm like, there is movement. I've had people that, I used to live in Indonesia and people would come intensely to see me, like 3-4 weeks of intense, people would come in not able to walk that were able to walk. I've had people that were being diagnosed for different types of diseases and illness that have reversed. And so for me, I expect that. I have a high level of belief that healing happens. I monitor it, I watch the body, and I do believe that, when we have disease and illness, there's layers of stress and tension in the body. When that's removed, anything's possible. And I have my own son that wasn't supposed to be able to see or to hear. And you know what? He's 18, he's just moved to Barcelona and he's studying chiropractic. Like, that was my own son that had 3 lobes of scar tissue in his brain from double meningitis that was told, he will turn into, they told me, a vegetable. So and then I did the same, I went to hospitals and I worked with children and all types of, so much stuff. Like I could just go forever because I've seen everything and I just know, and I guess that's probably the space that I want to hold in this world. That is like, if anyone that's listening to this, if they've ever been told you can't, it's this, it's that, you will never, I'm like, maybe that's not true, because I've seen it all. And I do have the belief that, our bodies did get to this way, but they can reverse and change, and healing can happen. But as you would know as well, you know, the practitioner has to hold that space and believe that
That's
as well.
right. Yep.
So that's my, yes.
That's definitely the challenge at this point. Because we're both teaching, right? You know, so it's interesting. I've also stopped my practice after 30 years for different reasons, possibly, but I live in Canada normally. And yeah, it takes time for the practitioner to really let go, to believing what they're seeing and you know, honor that space and not put their own limiting beliefs and limit it, you know. And I always say, you know, well, when I don't know, when somebody comes in with something I had not seen, I didn't know if I could treat it or not, I would say, well, I haven't done that specifically, but I have no reason to believe that it can't work. You know, that was like a simple, I was thinking of a trigger finger. It seems like something banal, but, you know, on the other hand, this is quite inconvenient. And then it would just go away with simple little things, right? And it's that, to be able to hold that possibility and reflect it back, be honest, come from integrity, you know, because you don't want to lie and say, oh yes, everything can be treated, and you know, it has to be the truth, right? But to hold that truth is it's a learning curve.
It sounds like we're sharing the same message, because I say the same thing, because my practitioner say, but have you worked with that or that? I'm like, I don't need to know the name or no, but I'm better to say to the people, I don't know. And actually, you know your body more. And so does your medical team, because they gave you the diagnosis. This is what I do know. Can we try and see? And so I'm the same. I'm like, it's so good to just be really honest and go, have you worked? No, I haven't. I've never worked with you or with what's happening in your body, but I do believe this. Can we see? Lie on the table and let's see. And then also, and that's what I spend my time too, is like, how can I help my practitioners believe the same with that confidence that I do? Like you said, I only believe this because I've done it forever and I've seen it. Right. And some thing is like, we're on Zoom calls, I'm sharing, I'm like, you know what, just take my belief until you've got your own. Like, as long as we're connecting, then, because that's my hardest thing, is because when you've got somebody that's coming in that wants help, you've got to hold that space. Your belief is more than theirs to say, you're in the right place. I mean, I'm going to hold you here. And that's tricky for practitioners to believe, you know, that.
And it becomes easier when you understand that there are no coincidences, because that person came to see you because they did, and it's their time to go to whatever level they need to at that moment, right? So it's not a coincidence. So it's kind of your job to hold the space. You know, so if you see it that way, sometimes that's a practical way of looking at it, that, you know, some of the students are going, oh, okay, so, you know, because the imposter syndrome is so huge, right? Like, especially when you don't appear to be doing a lot, right? The more, you know, hard work and the more sweat you do, like if you were doing deep tissue massage work, okay, you're definitely the practitioner who does the work. When you're just playing with the body lightly and honoring its capacity, you know, you got to hold the space for that.
And it's hard, because my practitioner is like, but I'm not doing anything. I'm like, yes, that's good, because it's not about you, it's about them. I'm just asking you to match tone and be there so they can feel them. But should I do? I was like, well, now your brain's talking, not your heart. It's like, you believe that their body has what it takes to heal, then you can actually connect in. So there's no you, no them, and healing can happen. But you're right, because it's like, but if I did, it's like, no, that's your brain fix-it mode going. And it is. It's like, but I don't do anything. I'm like, but look at what's happening. Everything's happening in that space. And it can be hard. A lot of my people come from, you know, massage or kinesiology, where they're doing so much. And with spinal flow, it's actually just, it's a real hold of a contact and watching that flow of energy. So they're like, you said, I'm like, yes, this is everything. So it's tricky to share that and to say, do less, think less, fix less. And yeah, it's an interesting journey, I think, as a teacher, because, and also like, I think what you said before, it's like, but how can you not? Like, there's so much suffering in the world. These people have come to you. They've actually said, help me. You gotta be there. You have to, like, they've chosen you to be there. Like, they're asking for help. They're not saying, they're actually just saying, like, help me. So what do you need to do to actually be that for them? It's, yeah, I do put a little bit of responsibility on my practitioners. I'm like, we've got to do this together. Healing has to happen.
So, I mean, our time is literally up, but I just wanted to know, who do you train at this stage? What's the background necessary if people were interested to work with you or your technique? What's the background?
I have people from everywhere. The background is to be passionate about healing and to want to join a group of people that are doing good things. I've got people that have never done any healing. They've, been truck drivers or nurses or cleaners or mums, and they're like, I want to learn this. I've got people that are from, massage or kinesiology that go, I want to learn more about the spine. But then I've got, chiros and physios and the medical profession that go, they want to learn energy and emotion. So I sit in the middle with this. Everybody is welcome. You don't need any experience at all, just a willingness to make a difference and do good stuff in the world.
Okay, another thing we share. Anyway, it was absolutely a pleasure to get to know you and know that this is the energy that is spreading in the world. And I'm gonna definitely look into what you do in more detail and stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you. Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café. If you haven't already done so, please like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on, as I post a new podcast every Wednesday with tons of useful information and tips for natural healing that you won't want to miss.